Hi everyone, welcome again to Tammy and Data. If you are new to my channel, please click the subscribe button and make sure you watch this video to the end. Also, do not forget to turn on post notification because I am going to be posting more videos. So today, what are we doing? We are working on market basket analysis. So what exactly is market basket analysis? It's basically a way for you to identify the number of times that a pair of products were bought together, right? That is what market basket analysis is about. And this analysis can be used across various industries. If you want to know more about market basket analysis, click on the link in the description and it's going to take you to the Medium page, my Medium page, where I shared more about market basket analysis. So let's get right into it. I have the data set in my Excel and I am going to bring the data set right here. But first I have to create a database that would house this data set, right? So I am going to create a database now, and I would create database. Let's name it market baskets. All right, market baskets. Okay, so let me run this query now to create the database. Okay, so the query has successfully been completed. Let me refresh this and then we check the database. Let's see if we have it there. So this is market basket. We already have it there. So now we can import our data from Excel up to this place. So first of all, I am going to close it here. I'm going to make sure that it is not open in Excel. So I have to close it. So I have closed it now. So now I can import the data. So what I have to do is to select this, and then right click and go to tags, import flat file. Then next, here I need to get the file here, the location of the file. So I will go ahead to document and then project data set. Here it is. So I'll open it now and then click on next, and then let's confirm the data type. Then we click on next. So you should get this in now. Operation completed. So I would close this and then I would refresh this again. So let's see what we have in our database. So I'm going to select this to see the tables. Let's see if the table is here. So here we have it. This is the transaction data that we'll be using for our market basket analysis. So let's have an overview of our data set. Let's see what we have. So let's just select star from transaction data, right? So before I do that, I have to make sure that this database is selected here. So instead of master, I'll select market basket, right? So let me run this query, the select query, because we've created the database already. So this is the data. I have the unique ID, which is the transaction ID. I have the date. I have the product name. So we know that to do that, we have to have the product on the left hand side and also the product on the right hand side. So that is what we are trying to achieve. We only have business right now with the product name. So what I'm going to do is to select the product name only from the transaction data. Let's do that first. So select product name from transaction data, right? Let me terminate this and just bring it here. So I'm going to run this now and then it's going to give me only the product name. So the next thing I want to do is to make sure that there's a product name on the left hand side and also series of product name on the right hand side. So we have two columns side by side because we can only compare two columns together. We can't compare just one column. So the aim now is to make sure that we have a product on the left hand side and that the product on the left hand side is not the same as the product on the right hand side. Now, to do that, remember that we have to use join. We have to join this table with itself. So that is the first step that we're going to take. We already selected the product name from this, and let us name this table as T1. And let us make this as what? T1. Then we want to join it with itself, self join. So we'll join join with what? Join with itself, which is also the transaction data. Then you know we have to give this another alias to make them unique. So we'll make them T2, make this T2, and we'll join on, we have the transaction ID on T1 dot transaction ID equals to T2 dot transaction ID, right? So we have the product name. Now we need to select the product name of both tables. Can you see saying that the product name is ambiguous? That means it is not for just one table. So we need to make sure that they are different. The query can identify it as different tables. So what we are going to do is to just, let me pick this back. Okay, so let's make this T1, which is the first table, T1 dot product name. Let's name this as what? As the product 1. Let's make this product 1. So we've selected that. This is for the first table. Then for the second one that we are joining, T2, make it T2 dot product name. Remember that is the same table, so they will definitely have the same column header, which is product name. That is why it is ambiguous. So we are trying to make sure that they are distinct. So we say product name as, let's make this product 2, right? Product 2. Now we have that. So let's run this query and see what we have now. When we run this query, you can see that we've achieved what we want. We have both columns with products. There's a product 1 and there's a product 2. But there is more, because some of the products will be repeated, just like the first row here. You can see that the product, the natural ship company, is in product 1 and is also in product 2. So we want to make sure that they are different products. We have a different product here and also a different product here. They are not the same. So to do that, we need to add a where clause to make sure that it will filter the table, right? So we are going to say where the product 1, the product name, where T1 dot product name. Remember that T1 dot product name is our original table. T1 dot product name underscore name, right, is greater than T1 or T2 dot product name. Now this is going to make sure that no two products are repeated on both sides. Okay, so to make sure that they are not the same thing. So when we run this query, we would see what we are talking about. So if I run this now, let's execute this. So you can see that both are not the same. We have Smith's crinkle cut chips here, and we have Smith's chips chinley here, or tinley. So they are different. They are different products on the left side and on the right hand side. They are not going to be repeated, right? So we have that now, and what I want to do next is to calculate the frequency. I want to count the number of times that both products were bought together, right? So what I'm going to do is to use the count. I'll use the count to count the number of times that they occurred together. So I'm going to add the count in the select statement, add a comma here, and I'll say count. Let me use the capital letter. Count 1. Count 1 as frequency. So what I want to do is to count everything, like I said, and remember that the count is an aggregate function, so I have to use the group by. So I'll take group by T1 dot product name. I need to be able to group by the left and the right. So T1 dot product name, then T2 product name as well. So I've grouped by both columns, right? So let's run this query now and see the count. So if I run this is going to give me the count. Can you see? So this and this, this and this was bought just once, the same as many others. But we are going to see the top ones later. But let's continue to do our calculations, right? So we have the frequency now, and the next thing we need is the support. The support, the confidence, and the lift are what we call the association rule in market basket analysis. So in my next video, I am going to interpret the result of this query. I mean the result that we get from this analysis. I am going to interpret the result. So watch out for that. So we've grouped that by, and we have calculated the frequency, and the next thing to do is to calculate the support. And the formula for the support I have here is the frequency of the product, which is this one, divided by the total number of transactions. So we need the total number of transactions before we can calculate the support. Now to do that, I'll make sure I have the total number of transactions right in here, so that by the time I go further, it's going to be easier for me to calculate support. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. So let me calculate the number of transactions. So I'm going to also use the count, but I am going to add in a subquery. I'm going to add the select statement because I want to go and count the number of transactions in the original data. Remember that this data that we have here is a result of what we did here. So this is not the original data, but I will need to go and count the number of transactions from that main data. That is why I'll be using the select statement. So I'm going to put it in a bracket, and I'll say select the count of transaction ID. Remember that transaction ID is the unique column, right? We can use the transaction ID. You can also use star, but I think the first time I posted it on Twitter, somebody gave me a suggestion that it's best to use a particular column, a unique column, so as to reduce query time. I should make sure that your query is not complex. So I'm going to be saying transaction ID, count the transaction ID, right? ID, and count that from, we need to add a from statement. That is where it's counting from transaction data. So this is going to count from transaction data. This is it here, and then let's give it an alias. This is the transaction, total transaction. So let's say total transaction. Can you see? So let's run this query and see what we have. So we'll run this now. We'll run this now and see the result. So you can see that we have the frequency and we have the total number of transactions, right? And for the support now, we need the frequency of products divided by the total number of transactions times 100. So we already have the parameters at which we need to calculate the frequency, right? So let us go ahead to add a CTE so that we can calculate the support and also extract the frequency before we go further into calculating the confidence and the lift. So I'm going to add a CTE, and I'm going to say with, let's call the new table market. It's more like we are giving this table, this new table that we have here, we are giving it a special name, so it will be easy for us to extract another information that we need from this table. That is why we are using a CTE, right? So I'm going to call this market, and I'm going to open the bracket and close it here, close it at the end of the query, right? I'm going to close it here. Then I'm saying with market as, there should be a as here, as, so I'm saying with market as this. So I'm saying that this table now, the result of this query now is what I want to address as market. So from market now, and I want to extract another kind of whatever it is that you want to extract. I want to extract something else from this market, right? So from this market, I would now say select. I want to select the product 1, right? Remember, we already gave it a product 1 here, so we can select product 1 and product 2, right? Product 2. Then we can select the frequency because we have our frequency here. I can select the frequency. I'm coming back to the support, but see what I am trying to do. So select this, and this from. Now this is not going to be from our main data again. It is going to be from market, because you already told the SQL that this is what I want to see as market. So I'm saying select this from what? From market, right? So let's see what our query will give us now. Let's run this query and see what we have. So you can see that we have product 1, we have product 2, and we have frequency, right? Let me bring this down a bit. So the next thing I want to do is I want to calculate support. So you can see that I have the total transaction here. I've already gotten it out from here. So all I just have to do is to calculate my support directly. So I'm going to bring this down so as to make my query readable. going to bring this down, then bring this down as well. Then I'm going to calculate the support. And remember the formula for the support, which is frequency divided by total number of transactions. So I am going to say frequency, this frequency, times 100. Because if I directly divide by saying frequency divided by the total transaction times 100, it's not going to give you the results that you want, right? So you have to make sure that you are careful with this kind of calculation whenever you are doing division. So I'm going to say frequency times 100, right, divided by, so it will calculate the frequency times 100 first, then it will not divide by the total transaction. So this we name as what? As the support, because this is our support, right? So this will rename as support. Now let's run this query and see what we have. So you can see that this is giving us is 0. Now for MS SQL, you have to make sure to indicate how you want the result to be seen. For example, here we want it to be in decimals, right? The result has to be in decimals. So we have to do something like 100.00, right? So that the kind of result that you get would have this decimal. Now let's run this query. Let's see what we have now. So you can see that we have 0.200000. There are some annoying extra zeros that we have. We have some annoying extra zeros. So to get rid of that, we are going to use the format, because we want it to be in a particular format. So we are going to say format the result of this, right? We want to format the result of this as what? So we are going to give this put this in a bracket. Then let's give it another bracket. Okay, we don't need to give it another bracket. Let's just say format this as, how do we want it to look like? We want it to look something like this, which is what? Which is 0 dot hash. Then we give it the quotation, right? So that means we want it to be like this. We want the result to look exactly like this. So let me run this query now and see what we have. Can you see what we have? We have 0.20. Now we need to calculate the confidence, right? We need to calculate the confidence. What each of these terms mean, I added it to the write-up that I made on my Medium page. So just click on the link in the description and you would have a better understanding of what each of this mean, right? So the next one is calculate the confidence. What is the formula for confidence? Confidence is the frequency of both products, of which we already have, which is this one, divided by the frequency of the product on the left hand side. The frequency of the product on the left hand side. So that means we need to calculate the frequency of this first, so that we can be able to calculate confidence. Now I want to make sure that every of the parameters that I need for my calculation is tackled here. I don't want to be doing anything extra here. I just want to do the simple calculation here. So I'll make sure that I calculate the frequency of the product on the left hand side, which I need to calculate the confidence. I'll make sure that I have that right here. So that is what we are going to do now. So I am going to say that I'm going to use the select statement, because I want to count the number of times that the product on the left hand side occurred in the transaction. That is the goal. So I'm going to say select the count, because I'm counting. Select the count of transaction ID again. Transaction ID, right, from our original data. Remember, from original data, which is transaction data. Now we need to add a where clause, because we only want the number of times that the product here occurred. And remember that while we were adding this where clause here, we made sure that the product on the left hand side is not the same as the product on the right hand side. So we need to calculate them separately. So we are calculating the frequency of the one on the left hand side, remember. So to do that, to achieve that, I am going to say count the transaction ID from the original data, where the product name in the original data, remember that is the name of the column, of the product column in that data. Remember that is the name that we changed here. So we are saying that the product name in that has to be equal to the product name here. so that it's going to count only the ones that meet that criteria, right? So I'm saying where the product name in the original data, which is T1 dot product name, right? Remember that T1 is the name of the product on the left hand side here. T1 dot product name is name of the product on the left hand side here. Can you see this? That is why we have this. So where this here is equal to what we have in the original data, which is what? Which is product name. Remember that is what we have, product name. But if we do this, it is still not going to be able to bring what we want. We have to be able to give this data here an alias, right? So we are going to say this should be E, because it might not see this as, it might see this as being ambiguous, right? So we need to be able to specify that we actually want something from that original data. So we have to be very, very specific and be careful. So I'm going to say this here, which is the one we have right here, equals to what we have in the original data. And you can see that I already gave it an alias, let's say E. So I'm going to say E dot, which is equals to E dot product name. E dot product name. So it's going to see this one as the product name for the original data and see this one as the product name for the data that you have now, right? Sorry, just this one, right? So let's close this. And what is this called? What are we calculating? We are calculating the frequency on the left hand side, right? On the left hand side, that is what we are calculating, right? That's what we are calculating. So there is a, okay, this should have a comma, right? Exactly. So let us run this query and see if we are going to have this frequency, right? So let's run this query. Now the frequency that we calculated here is not showing because it is not included in this select statement. Remember that whatever we include in this select statement is what we are going to have here. We already assigned the CTE to it, right? So I am just going to say that what I'm going to do now is that I am going to calculate my confidence, because I already have the parameters. I have the frequency of both sides and I have the frequency on the left hand side, which is this one. So right here I am just going to do my simple calculation, right? So I am going to use the same I'm going to do the same way. I'm going to say the frequency of both products, which is the original frequency that we have, times 100. Remember your 0.00, else it is not going to give it that decimal. So we are dividing this by what? By the frequency on the left hand side, which is what we already have in this original query here. So left hand side, right? So what are we going to call this? This is what? This is the confidence. So I need to put a comma here. So eventually we are still going to add format here to make sure that they are in the proper format, but let's see the result of what we have done first. So if we run this query now, you can see the confidence. You can see that the confidence, this is 5.0, 7.14. You can see how it is. So to make sure that it is well displayed and that we have the number of decimals that we want, we are going to use the format. If we use the round did not give me what I wanted, because the round might not be able to see the extra zeros. I might just leave it at that. So that's why we are using the format. So I'm going to say format whatever it is you have here, right? And give it to me as like this, 0. ##. Then we close it, then we close the parentheses as what? As confidence. So let's run this now and let's see what we have. So can you see that the confidence 0.000 now is now 5. 0.2 is just the way we want it to be, right? We already have that. So the last one I want to calculate is the lift. Now the formula for the lift is a bit more, right? Because we need the support. We need to calculate the support of both products. We already have that, so we don't need to calculate it. That's what we have here. This is the support of both products. But we need to calculate the support of product A and the support of product B. We need that because those are going to be the denominator for whatever we have here. So we need to calculate both supports, and we can't do that here because we don't have the original support that we need here yet, right? This support is not here, so we are going to do that calculation right here. So let's give it this comma and you see what we have. Now let's start from the denominator. The denominator says support of product A first. Now let's do that. How do we calculate support of product A? The same way we calculate the product for both sides, which is this. It is what? The frequency times 100.00 divided by total transaction. So to calculate that of A, we are going to say frequency of A times 100 divided by total transaction. That is what we are doing. So I'm going to say the frequency. Remember that we already have the frequency of the left hand side here. So I'm going to say the frequency of the left hand side, which is A, multiplied by 100.00, right? Divided by what? The total transaction. That was how we calculated the support here. So I'm going to say divided by total transaction, right? So this is the support for product A, right? Now we also need the support of product B that will multiply by this one so that we can have that as the denominator. So multiplied by, but the only thing is that we don't have the frequency of the right hand side yet. We only have that of the left hand side, but we need it. So we need to calculate that here so that our calculation can be a lot more simpler here. So let's do that. What I'm just going to do is to copy this because it's the same format. We'll just copy this and I'll paste this here, right? So what I'm going to change is to change this to T2 and change this to frequency of the right hand side, and I put it a comma here. Remember that they are all in the select statement, so they need to be separated by a comma, right? So we already have the frequency of the right hand side calculated here, right? So now let's now bring it down here. So we now say frequency of the right hand side. Remember that we are calculating the support for the left hand side and the support for the right hand side. So let's go. So we'll just say this divided by transaction, total transaction. Now this, okay, we multiply this by 100.0. Now this is the support of the left, this is the support of the right, which we need as denominator for the left. Can you see it here? We have already touched the denominator. Now let's give them a bracket. So we give this a bracket. We give this a bracket here, close it here. So this is the denominator now. Now let's now bring the numerator. You give it the division sign. Then the numerator is what? Is the support that we have calculated here, right? So we're just going to say frequency, the original frequency, times 100.00 divided by total transaction. This is the support for both, right? This is the support for the left and this is the support for the right, just as we want it in our lift. So this is going to be called what? As lift. Can you see? So let's run this and see what we have first before we know what next to do. So let's run this now. Oops. So let's run this now. What do we have? Can you see what we have in the lift? We also have series of decimals. So let's make sure that they are in the format that we want them to be. So let's add formats. Just say format here, format here. Then after the format, we also need to give it a comma and specify how we want it to look like, which is a 0 point hash. Then we close that, right? Then we close the bracket. So let's see if we are very clean with the query here. So we have the format. This is what we have inside, right? This divided by the multiplication of this and this, right? So let's run this query now and see what we have. So can you see? We have the lift, we have the confidence, we have the support and our frequency. Now the only thing we need to do now is to be able to identify the ones that have more frequency, that are frequently bought together. The top 3 pairs of products that are frequently bought together. That is what we want to see, right? So let's say select the top 3 here. So we are going to put that here, top 3 here. right? And we are going to put them in descending order so that it's going to start from the highest down to the lowest. So let's order by the frequency that we have, the frequency in what? In descending order. So let's run this now and see what we have. So you can see that we have only 3 pairs, and you can see this is the highest, this is the second highest, and this is the third highest frequency. So like this, now you have already performed market basket analysis and you've given the result. Now to interpret this result and know what each of these number represents, then watch out for my next video where I am going to be interpreting this data and be telling you what they mean and how they affect the business. Right, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you are able to understand market basket analysis in SQL. Don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to like this video. Thank you so much for watching.